welcome to A Better Man podcast. We are glad that you have joined us today. My name is Colby Taylor, and this is
Kim Kimberling.
Yeah, Dr. Kim.
I know.
You don't like that?
It's okay.
You
but,
earned
know,
it.
Yeah, but I don't really.
All right.
I don't know who come. It's a guy a long time ago. Started off the marriage, started calling me that, and it just stuck. I mean, I do have a doctorate, but it's like I don't know. I don't get hung up on that.
I personally like it. It just makes me feel
Okay.
like I'm sitting next to somebody like.
Yeah, you are.
Exactly. So, Dr. Kim Kimberling.
Important is the word you're looking for, right?
Exactly. Something super important. And we hope that you guys are having an incredible day. It is March.
It's March. That's cool.
I'm ready for spring. I got spring fever like crazy.
Yeah, you get it's one of those when you get days that are really pretty, and then you still got some of that mixed weather. And
oh yeah,
those pretty days make me think, man, I'm so ready for spring, leading into summer. Get some flowers planted.
Absolutely.
Get outside more.
Kids, if you have kids, spring fever's hit at your home, and you're ready for them to go outside and not see them for 6 or 7 hours a day because they're outside playing.
That's what Nancy says about me. Just get out there.
Get out.
Can't wait till spring.
We don't want to see you for 7 hours.
No, go out there and plant flowers or do something.
Well,
all right. No. She'll kill me.
Today we're going to talk about community, and excited about that because it's something that I'm passionate about, and I know that you are.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah, I know how important it is.
And a lot of men aren't having community today. So want to just jump right in and start talking about this together. And just a little bit of my backstory with community, and you know this to some degree, but I've got a group of friends. There's a debate going on whether it's been 17, 18 years, but we've been getting together since college and taking a trip once a year typically, and getting together and hanging out. And it's now kind of come down to about 5 of us that are doing this on a regular basis. And these are some of the guys that I'm closest with. And when I was in college, it was something that I was praying for. God, I need some community. I need some men that I can really just lean on and cling to and do life with. And it's not always been easy.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of times it's been hard. There's been hard conversations. I alluded to this last week at my buddy Brett and I's conversation. I had asked for forgiveness because of the things I said. There's times that we've said things and done things where we shouldn't have, but overall, we've consistently continued to stay together. And even throughout the year, we're texting and having phone conversations. But it's always something I think that we're working on improving on. But I'm so thankful for these group of men in my life, and realized how important that community was. And I will say this: it was so good to have that in college. But as I've gotten older, it's gotten harder. Family, life,
lots of interruptions,
and to make that same type of friendships later on in life have seemed to be a lot more challenging. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the whole deal with community with guys, I don't think we're as good about it. Because when I think community, I think about the guys that I connect with, the guys that I can talk to about anything, the guys that we don't, we talk about sports and stuff, but we can also talk about, man, I'm struggling right now as a husband, or man, I'm not hitting it. What are you doing that maybe is working, and so I can learn from somebody else, or those kind of things. And also just somebody that share life with like that on that level. And I think guys are pretty good about having a few guys that they, maybe play golf with, and that they maybe go to sporting events too, and things like that, may hang out with a little bit. But I don't consider that community. I think just hanging out with guys is different than having some guys that you care enough about when you do something, offends them, to come back and say, I'm sorry. And that also give you a lot of grace.
Oh, so true.
Within it.
So true. And some of that, what you're alluding to, what you're talking about, is accountability.
Yeah.
Like, you got to have men in your life that you can sit there and say, hey, today I struggled with this, or I looked at this, or I shouldn't have done this, or I'm having an issue with my wife or my kids. And you can go to them in confidence and share those things with them. And they talk about, and there's an accountability there. And some of those guys that I'm talking about, I have that with them. I can call them and say, today I screwed up, or today I did this, or vice versa. And they're there for me. There's no judgment, but it's an open, honest conversation. And sometimes they even call me and just say, hey, how are you doing? You've been on my heart. And that's what you're talking about. But a lot of men don't have that accountability, that depth of it.
No, they don't. And I think that just what you're saying there, I think that's so cool that when there's real community, we do check in on each other. Yeah. If I'm struggling, we talk a lot about porn and stuff like that, and we know it's a struggle for guys. You read the stats and it scares you because it's rampant. But I think with accountability, when you've got a small group of that, I can say, man, I thought I'd conquered this. I'm struggling again. Will you pray for me? And not only that, will you get in my face every week and ask me what I'm doing and I'm not doing? I've had so many guys that came out of that, and it took some other things too, but that was a huge part of their healing, is to have that accountability and somebody else that was willing to say, what have you looked at this week? How are you using your time? You said you're going to do this instead of that. Are you doing that? Those kind of things.
Why do you think, when it comes to men and accountability and getting depth with another man or groups of men, why do you find why do you think it's so hard for us to do that in any stage of life? Why is that something that's so difficult?
I think part of it is we don't want to be accountable to anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Part of it is just, I really don't want somebody telling me what to do. I mean, the old ego thing, I know what to do. I may not be doing it, but I know what to do. But so I think that's a part of it. And I think, we struggle with going, if this is the surface, we struggle with going below the surface a little bit. The way we're brought up, where we're told not to feel, not to think, not to cry, those kind of things. And so going to a guy, like if I came to you and said, man, I'm really struggling with this, or I'm really sad about this, that didn't come easy for us. No, it's like we've got to be tough, we've got to suck it up, put on your big boy pants and pull up the bootstraps and all that kind of stuff. So I think that in itself, culturally, where we live, plays a part in it too. Yeah. So I think part of it is not wanting to, and the other one just I'm not. That's not, men aren't supposed to do that. I'll have to give you my man card if you see me cry.
Well, yet, and it's what you're saying. So much boils down to some vulnerability too. Like men, we're not willing to be vulnerable. It's hard for us to be vulnerable, unless there's a battle to fight. You don't hear a lot of stories of men that are there with each other, battling it day in, day out. Yeah. How do we change our mindset, though, to some degree, of saying, hey, yes, we're not in necessarily a physical war where you're going to battle with your buddies. And I think of Band of Brothers, I think of Saving Private Ryan, those movies that there's just a group of men that have just come together, and for the rest of their lives, they're close together because of that battle. But yet we're in a battle daily that we need those men around us to encourage that. That's because of a spiritual battle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just recognizing that battle is there.
Yeah.
And that the more guys I have around me, encouraging me, walking through things with me, praying for me, I can fight that battle better every day. And so I think maybe it's just that mindset of accepting the fact that your life is probably going to be better if you've got a community. And then you're not talking about 40 people.
No.
I mean, it could be a couple of guys. I think that's really kind of where I am. I've got 2 or 3 guys that really fill that role for me. Not that I wouldn't add somebody else in and something like that, but it's just, I know that I can talk to them about anything, and they know they can talk to me about anything. It's totally confidential, and so one of them, I had a friend not too long ago, one of the guys, and he called me and said, look, we need to go to lunch. And I got, man, I'm there. I put it on the schedule, and we went in a couple of days and talked through things together. And I want that. I want to have somebody like that, and I'm glad people have that with me too, that it goes both ways.
How long has it taken for you guys to earn that type of a trust?
It goes back to wives. The guys probably that I am closer with in that way are guys that we started off in a small group with our wives. Okay. And so our wives drove us to that. Our wives are kind of some of the guys.
They helped encourage that.
They helped encourage that. And women are so much easier at being transparent than guys are. So when we do our study time, we're talking about the message from the week before. Yeah. It opened with the questions, open the door to be transparent. I think once you've been that with a guy, it does connect you in a way. I think like what you're saying, so you get guys that have served in the service together, or have had some really meaningful experiences together, that just draws you together. And so I think that's what happened with us. And so I think that was a good step. But I think you've got to, would I have done that with those same people without our wives encouraging us to be a part of this group? Honestly, probably not. Because I think it's harder for us to do that. And now I think, I don't know, what you guys started in college.
We started in college, and you're right, you're talking about shared experiences, and so much of what has brought a lot of us together as shared experiences. Some of those really stupid shared experiences, things that we could have gotten, the fact that we're still alive at times when I think back to things we were doing, but they're shared experience. Those are moments and memories that we can still relive. Even just this year, we went to Colorado and skied, and it was an incredible, tremendous opportunity to have that shared experience with those guys. And those are things that have continued, and we've had great conversations from those. And but yeah, shared experiences are great. I do know that as I've gotten older, to develop those same type of relationships with guys, marriage it sounds like, and that's what's so great about because you guys, your wives helped you guys formulate that. And I
Yep.
think my wife and I, we're struggling even to this day of how do you develop that community. The older I get, my friends are in different parts of the state, of different states, so we're not all
Sure.
as close together as we once were. It sounds like you guys figured out from that aspect of things to develop that community later on in life, which is incredible.
Yeah, and I think there's different ways to do that. I mean, I think one, you've got to say, if somebody's listening, you've never done it, and you think, okay, I'm going to take a step to do that. So you decide this could be valuable in my life, so you make the decision to do that. And then what I would say, look around at other guys that maybe are in the same stage of life you are. Maybe you just kind of see that they're, I don't know, kind of doing the same things you're doing, and also that you feel like I kind of like that guy. I think we could be buddies and that kind of stuff. And so you say, hey, I'm thinking about starting 2 or 3 guys get together and just make some commitments to each other. Would you be willing to be a part of that? And they may say no, but that's okay. There's other people out there. But I think taking that initiative, or if you've got, maybe it's the other side. Maybe you've got a couple of guys you see that are kind of doing that, and you say, are you guys open to a third person joining that? I think it's okay. I think that is the barrier, I think, for most guys, is how do I get into that? Once they get into it and they see the value of it, I think it's easier to keep that going. But it's that first step in.
And that leads to the next question I have. Where do you find this community? And you and I know the answer to this to in a lot of ways, and obviously a great way. You're not going to bars and going out to strip clubs or buddies that are at work and stuff like that. All those are places to find community. That's right. Let's just be honest with you. Those are community places. They're not healthy community places always. Even your work, there's not always a great opportunity to find the depth that you need because you're working together. But
Yeah.
One of those, a safe place, a great place that a lot of people just aren't looking, that they need to be looking for, is church.
Yeah,
is a great
absolutely.
gathering, or any type of event where there's people of like-mindedness and they're all on the same goal. One of the people that we look up to, Pastor Craig, he says,
Yep.
"Show me your friends, I'll show you your future."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
church is a great way, but is there any other places that I'm forgetting that I'm not thinking about? And how do you utilize church necessarily connect with other men of like-minded men?
Yeah, I think one thing that I've encouraged some guys to do, and that are in churches of decent size, is to tell one of the pastors, that you're kind of looking for something like that. Do they have a suggestion? Maybe somebody else has come to them and say, hey, if you know anybody. And sometimes they will know somebody that might be in the same place, and they could connect you and see if that could work. I have had a few people that find it at work. I think that's unique, probably a lot to go to a depth in that, because you're working with somebody all day, and kind of probably been the kind of work you do. Yep. and how much interaction there is in that could be a part of it. I think, I also know there's 3 guys that I work out with in the morning, but those guys meet outside of the gym. Okay. And they've kind of started those relationships in the gym. And then I think one day one of them said, hey, why don't we go to lunch once a week? Or why don't we do this? And so they begin to do that. So place. They meet outside of that. It started out with just casual guy talk in the gym. And then it just kind of evolved. One guy taking the step and say, hey, let's go to lunch. And that began to connect them, bond them together to talk about more important things.
That's great. You talk about working out, CrossFit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of community happening in any type of that. I'm always impressed with the amount of community that's happening in any type of CrossFit, because everybody's doing stuff together. Like
right.
You have to work together to accomplish the goal. So that's great. And you're right. People out in the business world, there are some strong relationships. I don't want to allude to that at all, but that there aren't. But there's absolutely right. But church opportunities where you have the chance to say, hey, we see this. Maybe not go to the same church necessarily, but we want something deeper. Let's start doing something outside of where we're meeting.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
You made me think of a guy that this was a few years ago, and he decided he asked his boss, and this is a company probably 300-400 people, something like that. He said, I want to start a Bible study on Tuesday morning at 6:00. Can I use the conference room? And is it okay with you? I said, sure, that's great. So they let everybody know. 400 people in the company. 3 guys showed up. Those 3 guys meet every week. Huh. But they started out on that. They started out that way. I don't think it's grown like that, but those 4 guys together have really grown together. So sometimes it's just stepping out,
Taking that initiative.
And this guy told his boss and told the guys the first time, I don't know how to lead a Bible study, but I think we can take a YouVersion plan, and why don't we just go through that, and then we can do something else, and we'll see where it goes. And it's gone really well.
Yeah. And it doesn't, we want people to understand that you don't have to have the same kind of experience I had with community where
Right.
that was great. It worked out for me, but it's what you're saying, that first step. You got to step out and take the initiative and say, hey, I see men that are like-minded that I want to have depth of relationship with. I'm going to ask them to do this.
Yeah.
Vice versa.
Yeah, and I'm going to maybe go a different direction for just a minute. I think what I did, and I think Nancy and I got married, the first of the guys that I hung out with, and I think there comes a time, I guess, and they're great guys, but I needed to move away from that too, going back to what Pastor Craig had said about your friends. And so sometimes you may have just kept with the group that maybe you did go to high school with, or maybe you went to college with, and they may not be that healthy. They may not have been what Colby experienced and what he's talking about, and sometimes it takes breaking away from this to start that.
So true.
And it's not easy. I get that, but you can kind of redefine that. Maybe you don't just say, well, I'm not going to see you guys again. Maybe it's just like you don't see them as much, or you let this group be priority, this new group over here.
Yeah, that's so true. And that reminds me, back when I was in college, I was like, God, I want something different than what I had. The group of friends, they were great people, but they weren't in the direction that I wanted to be running in. And I did have to say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is like, I'm going this direction with these guys. And it was great. We were still amicable, but that was definitely, did I say that right?
Yeah, no, that's good.
It's a big word.
It's a big word. I was just thinking about when Nancy and I were married, and my old friends would show up at our apartment door like at 10 at night with a 6-pack of beer, wanting to come in and watch TV, And about the third time she goes, no, we can't do this anymore. And I go, okay, that's right. They had no idea the difference it is when you're married and you're not married.
And I'm sure by this point in time, they understand it that way.
Yeah.
So do you think that marriage definitely does change that community and how it looks like to build community because of marriage? It would look different, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't see how it couldn't, because there's all of a sudden, until they're in the same boat as you are, it's going to be different in a lot of ways.
If you're not having some of the same life experiences, that's what really bonds us together. The other thing I think is guys that are Christian, we have a commonality there, and I've been around guys that I probably would never have run into otherwise, but ended up being in whatever situation, being in a small group with them for a period of time. And there is something about just having that commonality of your faith in Christ that bonds you together. And so somebody think, I don't know, it's kind of with the guys that were in the group our wife started, and we didn't know each other, didn't know anything about each other.
Yeah.
And I think after the first time I had all these preconceived ideas about all of them. But and they and find out, well, that's they're different than that, and so taking advantage of those opportunities.
Where they're set in front of you, like the opportunity, and making the most of it, and not just saying, I'll do it later, but like, I see this, I'm going to jump on it.
I think that happens a lot. I've heard a lot of guys, I want to do that, but right now I'm doing this, so maybe 6 months. And if you do that, you're never going to get there.
And it's time commitment. Like, you have to it's going to take sacrifice
It is.
to build that relationship or that community, because and a lot of men don't want to jump into that. That's like, okay, I've got this, I just can't add that. But do you necessarily, we agree that you cannot not afford to have that at the same time. Like, you can, you got to have some community, right?
And I think you got to keep thinking that can't become more important than your marriage or all that kind of stuff. So God's first, spouse second. But then where this community is, I think when your wife knows that you are investing other guys, they're investing you like that, she is going to be fine with you spending some time with those guys away because she's going to see the benefits of it.
Yeah.
She's going to see you be a better father, a better husband, all kinds of things. Your growth as a Christian, you can encourage each other in that. So I think our wives will support that once we get into it.
That's a good point. Speaking of wives, can you have community with the opposite sex?
No.
Okay.
I mean, just no. I mean, there's just...
Well, and you're talking like, let me preface this. One-on-one, go hang out with them. But obviously spouses, you're going to have some community in that regards.
Oh, yeah. And I have spouses there. But I'm thinking about, I'm not going into my church and pick 2 chicks and say, let's start a small group.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's just like, I might as well shoot myself, I mean, and I think as guys, and women, when they talk, that's one of the things in counseling we have to be very careful about. When women share their story, their heart, someone is there to listen to them, there can be a connection. And so if you have a woman in that kind of community, it's dangerous.
Yep.
It can be an emotional affair. It can lead to some really destructive things. And so I just totally stay away from it. What we have with women friends and I that I have, Nancy and I are friends with their husbands, wives, and those kind of things. And I wouldn't do anything with those women, just me and them anyway.
Yeah.
You know, that's just not, you don't do that.
Yeah, and one of the rules of thumbs that we follow through is like, no, any text messaging and stuff that I have with other women, it's always including my wife
Right.
into it or their husband, so it's always 3 people. There's no one-on-one time, whether it's at a restaurant or coffee shop, and just don't even play around with it, because there's no, and especially when in the world that we live in marriage, that's what we are about, and helping couples get better and stronger in lots of different ways in that aspect of things. There's any chance that Satan can utilize to knock us out, he will use that, and I cannot afford to take any chances in that world
Right.
at all.
And you were a man, or our pastor said, you were a man before you were a husband, a Christian, all those kind of things. And you just got to realize we've got vulnerabilities. And if you don't think you're vulnerable, you're fooling yourself.
That's so true.
Every guy that I've seen get in trouble at one point said, I wouldn't do that. Yeah, and they did.
Yep. No chances. Don't take any chances with the opposite sex. One-on-one. Community, husbands, wives, y'all are getting together, hanging out. That's a different story.
It's so countercultural. I get that, guys, but just don't do it.
It's not worth it. It's not worth
It's
it.
not worth it.
Something that I've talked with my friends about, and we've gotten into some pretty intense discussions about, is whether or not, when it comes to accountability, how much do you tell, you have this community, let's say you've got this established, you've got your friends, everything's going well, you've got some strong accountability there, and you're sharing things with them that are important that you're struggling with. Is there a limit, or do you share the same things with your spouse?
Okay, so this is how I feel, and you may feel different on it.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
I think Nancy needs to know everything about my life, whatever it is. I wouldn't share anything with her that the other guys share.
Okay.
But as far as what I'm struggling with, what I'm dealing with, how they're helping me, I think that's important. She knows, and she's supportive of that, and she can pray in that. Other guys may feel different. You may feel different, but that's kind of where I'm with it.
That's interesting. And I go on to maybe the other end of this, is whereas that's why I have those, and I see both sides of this. That's just kind of how my mind works too. But I've always taken the approach of that when it comes to my friendships, those are the guys that I'm sharing these struggles with, and that to protect my wife to some degree, I have to be careful with what I say, because she can't quite grasp some of the things that I struggle with on a regular basis. And so I go to my friends to help me hold them accountable. I have other friends in that group that they believe like you do, the same way, like they're going to share everything with their wife. I tend to, at least at this point in time, have gone towards that direction.
You know what I would say to that? I think it's great. And knowing you and Amanda, I think it works. I would say, what does your wife want? Maybe that's where you start with it. Because I know
that's a good point.
There are wives that would say, I'm glad you're going there. If you want to tell me a little, I don't need to know everything. And there's others that would want to know, or maybe Nancy and I have just always shared everything with each other. And there's never been anything that she just went crazy of because I told her, crazy about it. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from, that situation. So I think it really depends. Ask your wife.
That's a good call.
And
it also depends on where that level of trust is within the relationship.
Absolutely.
Because some couples I know that have had marital failures in the past, that becomes a source, like they have to talk about, like she needs to know things, because that's where they're at now within the relationship.
Building trust,
trust
accountability,
back
all
again.
that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes, just that maybe you don't tell all the details, but you say, hey, I'm working on this. I just want you to know, so you can pray for me, and
Go from there.
And then she can tell you how much she wants to know. But I think it does remit a lot on the state of the relationship. If you don't feel like you could go to your wife and share those things now, I would say work towards that, where you would feel comfortable doing that, if that's something that she wants.
That's something she wants. Absolutely. That's a good point. So as we've gotten older in our lives, which is natural, you're going to get older. Some of us are a little older than others. But anyway, has developing friendships.
Really? I quit counting. You know that, so you're catching up with me. You know that, right?
I do.
You're almost there.
That's fair. Has it gotten harder though for you? And I have my own theory on this too. But has it gotten harder to develop those friendships as we've aged?
I think it isn't harder. I think it's easier. And I think the reason I would say why, I think sometimes, and I've talked with those guys, sometimes as you get older, There's no pretenses anymore. You're not trying, it's like you just kind of who you are, and all this stuff of wanting somebody to think you're whatever. It's kind of gone. And so I think there's a little easier, like the guys that are in that relationship, and now there's more easier to be transparent at that time. Now, the other side of me, where are your opportunities in that? And so you've got to search out those opportunities. But I think for me and the guys that I am close to now, in that way, I think all of them would say it's been easier now, just because we're just transparent, open, and honest with each other.
When I think about this question, and your answer there, I wonder if stages are different. I feel like right now in my life, it is harder to develop those relationships, and I wonder how much of it has to do with the busyness of my life. You have kids, you have a job, you have your wife, like to necessarily take time to think, okay, another night during the week that I can get together with some people and build community, it overwhelms me to some degree.
I totally agree.
I wonder if, because that's how I feel, but I know it's important. It's just, I feel like it's harder.
I think so too.
Is that fair?
I was just thinking back. Okay, so like when our kids were growing up, really the kind of community I had, the three guys back then were guys that coached soccer with me, coached the boys.
Yeah.
And we'd meet together to do strategy, that kind of stuff before a big 8-year-old game, something like that. But that we kind of bonded together. We'd talk about a few things and it'd get off soccer onto other things. And so that was kind of built in. But it definitely it's harder, I think, because even at that, I can remember we'd be having dinner and we'd talk about things, and then somebody go, "Oop, kids are kind of bedtime. I gotta go home and help get the kids in bed." So you've got those demands, and so it's a little harder.
Almost, you have to you use strategy right there with the 8-year-olds, like you were strategy, but it is a little more strategic maybe to some degree in where I'm at, like I have to be more strategic.
Yeah.
How do maybe it's an earlier morning, but it's not something that you should be, it's not impossible, right?
No, and I think you can. I think it's worth sacrificing. I know some guys, when you sit early morning, that's what they do. They'll meet at a coffee shop, or they'll meet for breakfast somewhere, and that's kind of works, and they'll do that. I've got one guy, and he meets his group, I think at 6 or something. They meet for an hour or so. He gets back and takes the kids to school. And so, can you work that in your routine? And I think he would say, yeah, I have to get up earlier, but it's worth it.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Which you should be naturally. I mean, early morning should be something that's you shouldn't be sleeping until 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning anyway. The older you get, I mean, that's
right.
Naturally, there's things you have to get done during the day.
Yeah.
So hopefully you're not like, oh man, 7 o'clock in the morning, I got to get up.
So with 6 kids and a wife with a lot of energy, what's the latest you get to sleep in?
She is, she's more of to some degree a sleeper, but she'll the latest she'll ever sleep in is around 7 o'clock usually, or 7:30 on days that she wants to. But she can be really good about the disciplines of like 6 o'clock she'll get up, because if you don't get up at a certain time in our household and wake up and get going, chaos happens. So it has to get there where it's quiet still if you're really going to get your thoughts in place in order to do that.
Right.
I've been actually sleeping in later than I have in a while. I don't know what's going on with me. I've got to my disciplines have been off a little bit, but that's something I've noticed too.
9:30, 10?
At noon. I've been waking up at noon. It was a hard night.
That's those hangovers,
Kid hangover is what it is.
Yeah.
No, I do notice that, but yeah, for her, that would be it. Typically for me, 5:45, 6. That's if I can get that time in, that's perfect for me, those 2 times.
Yeah, my alarm goes up at 5:20 and try to get up and have quiet time, head to the gym, come back. By then Nancy's up, or she has an 8 o'clock class she goes to now, gym class at the gym, and so usually kind of
that's good.
pass them. Yeah.
Those are good. Yeah, little. Not necessarily community there, but definitely something I think that men need to be thinking about. It's like, hey, how are you structuring your morning as well?
Yeah, and maybe can work it in with something. Maybe you do have a couple guys at the gym, and you guys have talk about sports and stuff, and maybe take a step and talk about something else and see how they respond, and maybe you guys form something out of that. And then you go to lunch once a week too.
It's important.
Just look for it in front.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the deal, and look what's in front of you first. See if there's any possibilities there.
And don't run away from it. Like, don't just assume that I just can't do it. That's not true. And even now I'm thinking, like, I have got to do a better job at developing this in my own life now in regards to community here where we live at, and not just I've got to do a better job of that. But I can't make the excuse that I just got this, it's something important and that you have to have it. It's going to take some sacrifice, but anything that's worth doing is worth doing it well. And if it's hard, it always makes it worth it more. So
I think, yeah, and I think you're right. When you talk about your guys that you've been friends with in college, I think there is value in having someone local. Now, those guys you're going to always have that with, and you guys do stuff with those 5 guys. But I think having someone that you kind of are doing the same kind of things in life with, in the same city, there's some value in that.
Yeah, it's local community, and you always should be developing community where you're at, no matter what's going on. So,
right,
absolutely,
that's good.
We could talk about this for hours, but we don't have hours to talk about it.
No,
so.
we don't. But I hope guys are seeing that there's value. And I hope that somebody out there is just saying, I'm going to take that chance. I'm going to take that step from just what I heard. Maybe we'll challenge you in the next month. No, in the next week. Step out. Find one person that you think you could start a community with. Take that step. See what happens. Pray about it. Pray. Ask God, who could I use for community right now? Who could I draw into me? See where He leads you. Maybe all of a sudden you open up and you think, oh my gosh, I didn't even think of him.
He's been right in front of me every day.
Oh, exactly.
That's a great point. Definitely challenge you to do that. We believe that God's got a community set out there for you guys, and it's going to only make you better. Thank you for joining us today on A Better Man podcast, where you don't want to just be an okay man, but continue to work on being a better man. Thank you for joining us. Have a great rest of your week.
See you guys next month.
See ya.